Want to drive faster? Listen in as Kinch Rendell, an SCCA National Trophy winner and multi-time Pro Solo champion himself, interviews the best autocrossers in the land. He talks fast and drives even faster. And now here's your host, Kinch Rendell.
You know what the problem is? The kart has ruined it for me. It seriously has. It's so bloody fast, it just makes everything else slow.
This week's guest has 7 championships in a row, plus one more. 2 overall Pro Solo championships, like the end-all, be-all, the last man standing, and actually did very well to win those by going very deep. Actually, maybe he won both Pro Challenges at Nationals, at the Pro Finale. Started back at Texas A&M, went to Texas A&M. Actually, I was there for one semester with him. This is Paul Russell. So yes, he drives a kart, but he would like to win F-Stock or F-Street at this point, at some point in his life. He did drive cars way back when. He shares a lot of things that will apply to not only karting or parents of kids who want to kart, but just a lot of his tips and thoughts and things he does to be fast, his mental preparation, his walking the course, all these things. Hey, guess what? I forgot the left foot, right foot. Actually, I didn't forget it because only left foot brakes, so that's easy. But really listen in. There are lots of little pieces in here that I'm ready to listen to again. It's been very interesting to hear his different thoughts, even of how he breaks down courses into sections. So listen in, let us know what you think. What stands out to you? What are you going to try to practice? What will you experiment with? Paul, welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for the time.
Glad to be here, and there's a lot to talk about, so.
Yeah, tell us. When you told me just a minute ago, 20 years almost. When did you get started in this?
With karts or autocross?
I actually autocross. Let's see if you were not in a kart to begin with at the age of 5.
Well, I'm giving away my age. I just turned 50. So it started in college at Texas A&M. And there they have a very good sports car club, well organized, good autocross program, a good bunch of guys too. A lot of long lifetime friends I made there. And so I got started in 1987 in a Volkswagen Scirocco autocrossing there at the Riverside Annex, where they now host national tours. So we just got that site. I just bought the car, and the car was kind of a piece of junk, but it got me through E-Stock and my last 2 years of my undergraduate. And then I ended up going to graduate school there. So I ended up for almost 2.5, 3 years. And there was a recession going on, so I didn't have a job and no hope of a job. So I just hung out in grad school.
So what year did you get out of there?
92.
So
fall of 92.
I was there the same time you were, actually, for that one semester. Yeah, I graduated high school in 92, went off to A&M that fall semester, stuck around for 2 years, and went to Texas Tech. And never, ever knew about autocross, but I played basketball like 5 hours a day. So go ahead, Texas A&M. So you're an Aggie, you're an alum.
I'm a total Aggie, and that's where I really learned how to drive. And in fact, there's like a core group of guys that came out of that school, like that won national. Todd Ferris, Casey Weiss, Chris Ramey. Who am I forgetting? A few others, and also got to know the guys in the Texas Boats Club in Austin. Those got a good bunch of guys there too, and their little road trip team. Tom Holt and all those guys. It was a lot of fun. It was a good way to spend some time, and it was a big part of my life back then. So started in that E-Stock Scirocco that I just mentioned, but I switched to a Mustang. Always wanted a Mustang back then. I wanted a 5-liter Mustang, like I just wanted since high school, and finally got it like the summer of '89 at a police auction in Austin. That car, I think it was the Fox chassis back then. I had an '85 and an '88. And both those cars, basically, they did not handle well. I mean, it's just not a good suspension geometry in those cars. And they had lousy brakes, and they had a good motor, okay? But that car taught me how to drive. It taught me how to shift weight to where I needed to go. You had more power than you could put down, so you had to, modulate the gas and things like that. So that's the car that really taught me how to drive.
So is there an advantage to driving a car that doesn't handle well plus the extra power?
And if you're a beginner, in a weird way, it was, because it basically taught me how to just compensate for all its misgivings. And I really experimented with all sorts of front suspension alignment things. I used to tow it way out. I used to, of course, slam in the camber as far as I could. Like compensate for the brakes. I used to pull the handbrake up a little bit to get the rears to engage more. I used to do all these little tiny tricks. And when I finally switched over to Camaros, the F-bodies, third gen F bodies, those things handled so well right out of the box. Then I would like launched way faster and did much better. I'm like, oh, I don't have to do all these crazy like stupid things when I enter the turn, and and I can put power down coming out, and oh my god, So in a weird way, it was funky training wheels that for having a bad car. Yeah.
Is that because you noticed the weight transfer really helped? I'm thinking back to when I drove the Audi S4 for a couple of years, where I actually found out if I'd straight line brake and get on the gas a bit early, it transfers some weight off the nose and it seemed to be better. Is that something kind of like what you're getting at, that if it didn't handle well, you had to move that weight around?
Yeah, you basically had to shift weight forward going into a turn and then shift weight back going out, which makes sense, but you really had to do it in an extreme. And it didn't have much of a posse, so you couldn't just whomp on it coming out of a turn. It wasn't a GT3 in any way. And you just had to really coach it through a lot of places on the course. And you could go to ESP, of course, and then fix all these things. Put real brakes on it, and fix some of the problems with the rear suspension, and get the camber plates. But with the stock version of that car, it was really an underdog in that class compared to the F bodies. And a Camaro or Firebird could just dance around it easily.
Am I correct? A 5.0 was 225 horsepower.
That's correct. The fuel injected version, yeah.
I so wanted one also, because I got out 92 once again, and oh my goodness, I think pretty much every guy wanted one of those cars.
I love the car.
What did you study in college?
I love that car. Electrical engineering.
Okay.
So double E. I ended up being a software engineer, but so that's where my career went. Then after I finished in '92, I moved out to San Diego. I wanted to work in digital wireless. Want to get a job out. There were some good companies out here, and I had some family out here. I could go sleep on a few couches while I got resumes sprinkled around town. And also, I was from Albuquerque at the time. That's where I went to high school. And I looked into going to schools and colleges out in California. I was going either way, California or Texas. Ended up going to Texas. So in the back of my mind, I had a plan to go to California. It worked out well. So here I am. So then I got out to California. First thing I did is look up everyone who autocrossed, or everyone who had a Mustang, and made good friends, and still good friends to this day. So, and then that's when I got the Camaro, my first Camaro, like '95, I think it was, and loved it. Held that car for several years. So ran an F stock. So I'm really an F stock guy.
Oh, wow. F stock to, okay, let's get a smaller, lighter, faster. So yeah. Even the Mustang, you were trying to figure out, I'm thinking you're a tweaker. You were trying to figure out how to make it work better. Is that something that continued in the Camaro? Tweak here, tweak there?
As much as you can get out of the car, but the car worked really well. The only problem with the Camaro was it had a wickedly bad axle hop under certain conditions, under heavy, heavy, heavy braking. Especially if you had, back then it was R1s. Remember the Groove of Doom tires? I don't know if you remember those things. The car I had a 1LE too, so it had really good brakes. And it was actually B4C, which was the cop car version. So it was a 1LE with air conditioning, and it had just awesome brakes. And I could just point that thing on the nose under straight line braking, but the rear end would kind of just get unloaded and freak out on you sometimes and completely wash out. Happened to me in several pros, even happened to me on the street. It was really kind of scary, but that was the only problem that car had. Otherwise, it did everything really well. So nice. It didn't have a good posse, but it was much better than the Mustang.
So whenever it comes to your tweaking and trying to get everything out of a car, what were you looking at clocks to do that? Or were you thinking about feel? What determines getting it all out of the car for you?
That's a good question. I never thought about that. Really, how I do in class. I mean, so if I'm not doing well, I keep something's not right. Keep chipping away. Back then, it was me versus a guy who's the guy from Colorado.
John Ames?
Ran F-Stock. No, not James.
Kevin Youngers.
Kevin Youngers, that's it. So it was me and him for that year, and he was getting the better of me, and I finally edged him out towards the end of the season on one. I think it was Wendover, and I actually went to nationals that year, but I did not drive my car. I drove Casey Weiss's 4th generation Camaro, and I ended up getting a trophy, so I was happy about that. But I wasn't reaching my full potential just yet. But I had things to still learn. So. And
how many years? So that was 3 or 4 years in, maybe.
Yeah, into the Camaro.
Okay.
And then I just. I went out one night into town, and there was a guy at this one bar. I hung out at this bar, we played pool on a Friday night or something like that. This guy named Roger Andrews, and he had raced SCCA, wheel to wheel, and Formula Continentals, and he was in the go-karts. And he was telling me about shifter karts and stuff like that. And he goes to a given race and runs against guys in Southern California who are kind of pros, basically. At the time, Trans Am. And I was like, oh, man, I want to do that. I'm like, all I do is get a cart and do that. So he he upgraded his cart and he sold me his old cart. And that was 1997. So I went tooling around, just going to tracks and learning the cart. And it turns out it was an old dumpy cart that needed a lot of maintenance. And I almost gave up on the whole thing in 1999. I couldn't find parts for it. And I was like, what am I doing? So I was going to sell the thing and just go back to concentrate on autocross. But then the F125 class, which is now kart mod, got started in 98, I think. I think it was 98 or 97. I was not there for the first 2 years of that class. And I started in 1999 for the fun of it, just ran like the tour out here in St. Agatha. I just loved it. I'm like, oh, I hit my niche. Boom. So I stuck with it there and then worked on my game since then. So that's how I got transitioned into karts.
And how quickly did you loved it right off the bat. How quickly were you quick? Were you quick right away comparatively? Maybe not dominant,
yeah,
but
I was.
Quick?
And the class was young back then, and everyone was feeling it out. Like everyone was new in the SCCA went into the class, so we were all just kind of feeling it out. So on a relative basis, if you taken one of those drivers and moved them up to today and put them in a time machine, they would not do well at all. Like because we've gotten so much more refined at it. So, but back then we're all just kind of just getting the feel of the karts and how to figure them out and how to figure them out on an autocross course. We had no tires or anything back then, so.
Yeah. So how did that advance now? Like figuring it out. What advice do you have for, or what did you go through to figure it out? Was this once again trying all kinds of different things? I keep coming back to, I wonder if you were looking at clock or once again just looking at how you're doing compared to people, and is this also even changing karts in between each run? What are you guys doing?
Okay, so it's a long-term question. So there's like two phases to my kind of solo career in karts. There's the before and after wheel-to-wheel racing, which I started in approximately 2005. So before that, yeah, it was just relative performance to everyone else in the class. So and back then out here it was Tom Harrington out of Vegas at the time. Now he's in Austin, and also a few others. And we would battle it out. David Hironaka, another hot shoe at the time, and we would battle it out between the three of us. And so we'd always look for a little edge. Try a different set of tires, try this and that. And I went through, oh boy, 2 different chassis. I tried an Aero chassis. That was kind of a complete disaster. 2 seasons with that. That was a mistake. And then switched to a CRG chassis in 2004, and that's when I got my first win. And then in 2005, in 2004, the other thing that happened is I partnered up with Eric Nelson with his little 7th Gear company, and he sponsors me to this day. And he is the kind of my setup guy. Like he figures things out, and so he's the setup guy, and I'm the driver. So he's the Roger Penske, and I'm the driver for him. And he our partnership is really what vaulted us into that streak that started in 2009. But he and Eric and I went wheel-to-wheel racing together, and he was kind of my mechanic starting in 2006, and that's where we really learned a lot. That's where we learned a lot about chassis setup and things like that, and we eked a lot more time out of it. So it wasn't about finding the right tire or the right chassis. It was about setting it up properly.
And that's where, so for one, I would say, since you had 3 of them battling out, you were probably getting the mental game for the competition really figured out, as well as maybe we're somewhat figuring some things out. But you said it was after the wheel-to-wheel racing, really setting up differently for autocross?
It's a different setup, but learning how to set up. There's a lot of time in the chassis. People get focused on the motor so much, and it's not so much the motor. There's a lot of time in chassis. The reason is this: when we went wheel-to-wheel racing, we went into a new class that. Here's what happened in the United States in shifter car racing and wheel-to-wheel world, just a little offshoot. They started off with kind of the Honda engines that we use now, and they ran them stock, okay? Then they started adding more and more levels of modification. So, and then they went to like extreme levels of modification, and they got expensive, and they're blowing them up, and it became unpopular. And people were leaving shifter car racing. And then it circled back around, they went back to stock. So they wanted to cut the cost, and it worked. It was a very popular class, still is to this day. It's not perfect. It's kind of like the engine prep is similar to like showroom stock in SCCA. Guys do everything they can to like tweak, a couple thousandths out, find different heads and different cylinders and Mitch and Max and stuff like that. But you could still put together our first engine we got off of eBay. We swapped out the transmission and put it together, and it was competitive. And and then we went out there, and then we were still behind. We realized it's not the engine, it's the chassis and the setup. So then we just started working on that, and over the course of several years, we learned a lot. So and got competitive.
And is that where you would tell people to test at events, go out testing tunes? What works the best on the kart? Do you make big changes, little changes?
Okay, that's a good question. My advice is make big changes. Little changes you can't tell. I would do an extreme change and see what it really, and do it at a kart track. If you're going to get into karting, just take it to a kart track and then do it big changes and see what the effect is. And you can't always and the other thing is you can't go by seat of the pants feel. It's always lap time. The clock never lies. I've made changes like, I felt so much better, but it was like 3/10 slower. I didn't realize I was like, doing something. It felt good at the beginning of the turn, but I was, dragging the motor at the end and couldn't get my speed at the end of the straight or something. So always use the clock, make big changes to see the direction it's going, and then and go from there.
So how much, if I or somebody gets a kart, how much can I practice at the track? Is it going to help me for autocross, or am I setting cones up on the track if no one else is there? What does that look like?
Okay, you'll never have a kart track where there's nobody else is there. So you go. I forgot your question, but basically you should go to the track. I would get a set of slightly harder tires than we run MG greens. Okay, that's kind of like the de facto tire. The tires are open in the class, but everyone runs that tire. Get a set of yellows, which is slightly harder, but once they heat up, they get to be the same as the greens. And burn some laps. So if you're new to it, I would learn how to shift. Okay, because you got to get the shifting down. So it's so automatic. It's like another part of your brain's doing, and you don't even realize. So you can concentrate on the driving, and then try different setup things on the kart and see what the effects are.
This is a weird thing. I just realized. Buddy left autocross, got a kart, went to the track. He took the front brakes off his kart. To me, that seemed crazy. In autocross, does everybody have front brakes if they're fast and competitive?
Well, yeah, the shifters all have front brakes, and you need them because they have so much power. You absolutely positively need them. The kids run rear-only brakes, so all the in the country, all the non-shifter cars basically have rear-only brakes, and the shifters have front.
Yeah, I wonder how much of a change that is for a kid to jump on the other ones. I guess they're going faster, so you need more braking. But
you need it.
Yeah, I think you could be more aggressive with your setup, obviously, than a kid. Of course, it doesn't seem like the kids even use their brakes, honestly, in most of those classes.
They do. It depends on the course design, and it's harder to brake with a rear-only kart because you can spin it. You lock up that rear tire, you're going to spin and fast. Imagine just using a parking brake, on your car, going in an autocross setting.
That's where a guy that I met up with for a bachelor's party out there in California, in LA area. He used to race the Type R. I was in the Type R in those days. We went to an indoor karting track. I think probably K1 Speed or whatever. We both had the same problem of spinning those karts on braking for the exact reason you're saying. We think we can brake late like an Integra. No, didn't work so well.
No, it makes for good racing on the track, meaning it's easy to pass people because they're long braking zones. But no, it's dynamically unstable actually.
So if I was to, I think that a lot of speed in cars, and I'm hoping to hear from you, is in the brake zone of being very aggressive. Do you think that the fastest karting people are very, very aggressive on the brakes, locking up ever, or is that not a key?
No, it's not a key. I don't think the braking is a big deal. I could go to nationals and do just as well if I had with so brakes. The speed is in how fast you can take the turn, putting power down, and the right setup of the kart in the turn. And
that's where I feel like what I can picture is you guys in slaloms and I guess entering sweepers. How much is that kart sliding, or for how long, or is it even sliding?
It depends on the turn. So here's what I tell people: a kart is a kart in a straight line, okay, but it's a tricycle in a turn. Okay, so you need to get that rear tire unloaded. It doesn't have to be off the ground. It needs to have like zero downforce on it. And then it turns properly. So what you're setting up is how much of a tricycle, when it becomes one, and when it stops becoming one. And you do that with combinations of front geometry and alignment, and then chassis stiffness. There's different bars and different axles and how much the chassis flexes, because the chassis flexes a lot on a kart, and it's designed to flex to allow this rear tire to get up off the air, because we have a solid axle. It won't turn with a solid axle glued to the ground. Now, so when you go through a fast slalom, you're really kind of sliding around a lot because you don't have time. The chassis doesn't have time. It takes time for the chassis to set up for a turn. there's a transition between going from kart to tricycle. That transition it's too fast in a slalom. So the answer to your question is you're sliding a little bit in the slalom, but around a sweeper, you need to be a tricycle.
Yeah. I did indoor karting way too much now, probably 7, 8, 9 years ago. Yeah, It was great having him work with me. We were like, hey, for lunch, let's go again. Yeah, let's do this. Dylan, that was fun. And it was amazing how I knew nothing about karts. So I'm reading all these articles, trying to figure things out. And the tricycle effect, okay, it kind of started making sense. And then I got between two fast kids. And what I learned in these kind of crappy karts at the time was I was braking too soon because since I was between them, the guy behind me would hit me. And I realized, the other guy's waiting longer. And we were inducing that in these karts by the braking. And to me, it seemed like very abrupt braking and turning in, I'm not sure, at the same time.
Yeah. There are techniques for non-shifter classes where guys can pitch it. And they brake and kind of just over-brake, get the rear end loose, give a twitch of the steering wheel, and then pitch it sideways like you're on dirt. So it depends on the surface, depends on the kart. There are different techniques. The problem, same thing applicable to autocross. Karts are designed to run on kart tracks, which have really tight turns, relative to an autocross. Autocross has very large radius turns. So you're not going to be pitching it a whole lot going around a gigantic sweeper, okay? So, and then the 180s you'd find on a kart track, you could never do that on an autocross course because no car has the turning radius to handle it. And if you did design a course like that, you'd be, tarred and feathered. So you have to keep that in mind. So some of the things you might see on a kart track or an indoor kart center doesn't apply in terms of technique in autocross.
But the setup, can you take your kart to the track, and if you're practiced up well, are you competitive?
Yeah. My problem you mean competitive wheel to wheel or just competitive like lap time and?
Oh, either one. I guess lap time would make the most sense to see. Could you qualify well?
Okay, lap times, yes. I could go to any race and qualify well. My problem is in wheel to wheel racing, it's a physical game, and it's like wrestling a bear. I mean, it is just tough. You got to be in shape for it. You got to be in karting shape. And the only way to do that, you can't even get in the gym and do anything for that. You have to just run tons of laps. It's tough on your neck. It's tough on your back. It's tough because you don't have anything holding you in. You wouldn't believe what a difference having a 4-point harness is on a car. When you don't have that, all you have to do is hold on to the steering wheel and hang on to 1.5 G turns, for 25 laps. It wears you out. So, so wheel to wheel is a physical game. Autocross is a mental game.
Yeah, you were telling me, we spoke one time about going out and doing that, and you said that's why they hire people. Because I was blown away when I went to one of his little events, and in between he had somebody helping go through the whole cart, and you had to move it over here. I was blown away at the amount of time spent not racing the cart but working on it. I'm like, wait, I don't spend that much time on any of my cars. And you told me it was just amazing how much effort and energy it takes, because you're done racing, you're tired, but you have to get ready to go again later.
Yeah, so like at a big race, like the biggest race in the country in wheel to wheel is Supernats in Vegas. It's the equivalent of the runoffs. Okay, so it's a 5-day race. And you have to have a full-time mechanic for that, and or tuner / mechanic, because you just have practice session after practice session. You got to make all these changes to the cart and try different things, and you're just exhausted as a driver. You can't even get up. You're like, I can't realign this thing right now. It's like it wears you out. So you need help.
Whereas
it makes a big difference.
In autocross, most of us can survive making the, let's say, pro solo runs. We can handle 12 over 2 days plus challenge if we're...
Oh, yeah, that's no big deal. It's completely different for autocross. You don't need a mechanic. You need time. If you're going to own a cart, you need time to work on it. It's kind of like a little... It's kind of like a little F-16. Meaning for every hour of flight time, you need 2 hours of maintenance, kind of thing, or whatever. But that's sort of true. The reason is there's so much vibration. So things break, things shake loose. You just got to make sure all the little bolts are on there and stuff like that. But the good part is it's so easy to work on. Just prop it up on a stand in your garage, put on a radio and just spend some time on it. So if you're going to own a cart, I give advice to people. I say, 1, make sure you have a means of transporting it. Okay. You got to have a truck or a trailer. 2, have a means of storing it. Okay. You got to be able to stick it in the back of your garage, put it in the back shed, someplace. I used to rent garages. And 3, you got to have time to work on it. Not a lot of time, but it's not zero maintenance.
Okay, who will let me?
Because if you don't, it's going to break down on you, and at a very inconvenient time. and you're going to be pissed off. So
yeah. So what's
and that's
the
true. Sorry. Last one thing. That's true for the kid karts too. I see the parents like get into it and don't realize what a commitment it is. So.
Oh yeah, that's where Jay Yost trying to keep 3 of those things, 1 kid and 2 adults last year. He's like, I can't think about anything else. I'm trying to keep these things running and getting them running.
He's kind of right. Yeah,
this
that's
year
a lot.
Down to 2. He's like, okay. And my thought is, can I go to 4-stroke? Can I just make sure my kids have like a 4-stroke or something indestructible?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I'm doing. Of course, no one knows. I'm just running around with my head cut off. But I can't imagine, like, even the jetting and stuff, like, what? I have to now change this or the gear for this course? Ah!
Right, exactly. So, and there's things you got to do during the race. Changing gears and changing setup, and then there's maintenance. So, 2 different things.
While we're talking about this, so for all the parents that keep asking the same questions about for the kids, what is, even if it's 20 minutes, what do you want to tell them?
Well, let's take someone who's like wants to get into it. Like I get a lot of questions when I'm at nationals. Like, hey, my son's turning 8 years old. Next year I want to get him into junior A or something, or junior B. And what do I do? And I there's definitely some patterns of mistakes I see people make. And first off, you can do karting cheaply, but don't do it on the cheap. Okay, spend some money. And here's what I see in the SCCA versus wheel to wheel. For example, if I went to a wheel to wheel race in LA. Go to the LA Kart Club, and I go and I see a junior class of 10-year-olds running, okay? And they're in grid, they're ready to get on the track. I won't see a kart older than 2-3 years old, okay? I go to the SCCA event, and I see the juniors lined up. I don't see a kart that's even newer than 2 or 3 years old. They're all like 15 years old or something, just old karts. And I kind of get that. People just want to buy anything like, oh, the Wilsons are selling a kart next door. We'll just buy that, and it'll be fun. I get that, but you're also buying some maintenance headaches, and karting technology has improved in the past 20 years. It really has. The brakes have gotten better. The chassis have gotten better. My advice is you don't have to buy new, okay? Like karts are like jet skis. They just like lose like a third of their value in 1 year, okay? Not in one race, actually. If you could find something that's a year old or 2 years old, even in the wheel-to-wheel community, as long as it's not bent, buy that. You can buy somebody out with all their spares and everything else. So that's what I kind of recommend. Don't buy something that's way old, but you don't have to, buy brand new either. So, and also stick with one of the mainline chassis. They're all made. Most of them are made in Italy. So you got Tony, you got CRG, you got Burrell, Intrepid, and then there's some derivative chassis like GP, and that's actually a CRG chassis. And those are good. Any of those ones are good. And you'll be able to find parts. There'll be people there who understand the chassis. You can get advice on setup, things like that. Don't buy some weird, bizarre brand just because, the Wilsons next door are selling it. Okay. So the last thing I do is, I already mentioned it, make sure you can transport it, store it, and work on it. And then budget another $1,000 for incidentals. You need some safety gear upgrades, full facial helmet. You need a suit. You're going to need a kart stand. You're going to need some specialty tools to change tires, things like that. So it's an extra $1,000 in there. So, but you can also sell everything when you're done. So, especially if you buy used, you're not going to get taken to the cleaners. So my advice is spend a little money, but you don't have to go all out with new stuff.
And then how much? I get the kart. It's not too old. It's actually running. How much am I going to mess with the setup for that kid?
It's a good question. It depends on your surface and where you're at. So if you're running on, you're gonna have to learn that. You're gonna have to go to the kart track and take the kid there too, and that's where they should really learn how to operate the kart. And most kart tracks, when they have a practice day, they'll have a special session just for the kids. And they'll also do things like they'll put an X on the back of their helmet with tape, letting everyone know they're a beginner and stuff like that. So that's where they got to learn the kart, and you got to learn, what's a kart in a straight line, a tricycle in a turn, and when you make it, and when you make it a tricycle, and when you don't. And it's tough to watch a kart. The experts can do it. I can do it partially, but it's tough to watch someone from a distance and see how it's handling. So you're gonna get some feedback from your kid and teach them what understeer is, and things like that. And just go for it from there. So, and then adjust for your surface. So if you're on asphalt, it's going to be a lighter grip. If you're going to be cold temperatures, make a big difference, especially because we run a harder compound tire for the kids. They run a MG Red, which is really an indoor kart tire. That's on purpose to kind of slow them down. And that tire does not do real well in cold temperatures. So like below 65 degrees or so, and then learn all the gearing and things like that you got to do. So
cool. And since we were talking about kids, Mason Herrick asked about the 43% versus 57% front rear balance of a kart.
okay, okay. It's funny. Years ago when I was when I first started, I used to get scales out and scale and do all this stuff. I don't do any of that now. The answer is it doesn't matter. What matters is, here's what you do. You always place the driver where the manufacturer intended that driver to be. And that means the seat placement is what counts. Put the seat where it's supposed to be, and then you move the controls so the driver can reach them. So the mistake I see parents doing is they move the kid up to reach the pedals or something. No, put the kid or the driver where they're supposed to go, because their center of gravity, that kart is designed around a certain person's center of gravity to be in a certain location. Put it there, move the controls there, and you'll be fine. I don't care about the percentages and all that jazz.
Very interesting that it makes sense, because isn't the chassis is the suspension, right? When it's tweaking and
everything's a suspension. It's the tires of the suspension. Okay, those are your shock absorbers. The chassis it flexes, and then the center of gravity of the driver is a big part of it, because you're half the weight, and you leaning into the turn, literally leaning into the seat, just for the normal centrifugal forces that happen, help pull that rear tire off the ground a little bit too. And that position and the position of the driver and the center of gravity matters.
So leaning into the turn or out of the turn to let the inside tire come off?
Leaning to the outside.
Okay, good.
You don't have to physically make an effort to lean. It's just that you just do that anyway, because you're just hanging on, But the chassis is designed to have a driver of a certain weight. It acts like we always say the driver acts as a reverse pendulum. Kind of imagine a pendulum in reverse up in the air, and it helps pull the cart over a little bit.
So
you need some body roll, okay?
Yeah.
And the driver intentionally is the part that adds the last little final bit of body roll that you need.
That can help. Now, if I'm adding weight to a cart or a kid's cart to get to minimum or whatever, do I want to put that high or low? Does it matter? Does that help?
That's a good question. The answer is it depends. If you're not getting enough lift, put it up high. If you are, get it down low and away from the motor.
Okay, and so that would be on how quickly that tire's coming off the ground. You can play with that weight high and low.
Or how much, not how quickly, but how much total. So imagine you're going around in a G circle, okay? You're just doing, just spinning around in a circle. If you're not getting enough transfer and you softened up the chassis all the way and it's still not, it's still skidding too much, get the weight up higher.
Okay, and skidding too much as in it's sliding, and that has to do with?
The rear, it's just the rear still glued in.
Yep, and to soften it, you can do different diameter rear axles. Is that correct? What else can soften a chassis?
What can soften a chassis is the effect of every chassis has different axles. So they'll the manufacturer will sell you. There's a variety of axles for any chassis, and there's stiffer ones and softer ones. And I can't tell you which one's which because it varies per chassis. And it's inverted for some chassis. Like the CRGs are weird. They like softer axles, or other ones like harder. And so there's no rule of thumb. You got to find the right axle for the given circumstances. But some chassis, one axle kind of works everywhere, almost everywhere. So, like Tony's that way. So that's kind of why I like Tony. The other way to soften a chassis is the front bar. You have this front bar that bolts between 2 points up by kind of right in front of the gas tank. And that governs or modulates how much twist is in the chassis. The twist is generated by the front tires because there's so much caster. The chassis has about 20 degrees of caster in it. So when you turn the wheel, let's say you're going around a left-hand turn, okay? So the tire on the left as you're driving goes down about a half inch, and the tire on the right goes up about a half inch. That's a huge amount of weight jacking on the front, and that initiates the twist. But then the centrifugal forces kick in, the weight of the driver kicks in, the chassis stiffness or lack of stiffness kicks in, and then you're a tricycle. So
yeah, because it takes, I guess, a little time for the twist to get that tire off the ground. I know when they're sitting on the ground with nobody in them, and you turn the wheel, that, at least in some carts, am I correct, that back tire just comes off the ground?
Good, that's a good thing, So yeah, exactly.
And if carts get bent, if I'm going to go buy a 2-year-old cart, is that something obvious, or do I need somebody like you that has a clue
tough.
Probably looking?
Yeah, okay, here's my advice. Don't buy a chassis that's all scraped up underneath, badly scraped up, where you can see like layers of metal that are gone. every chassis scraped up underneath. Okay, the powder coat's scraped up, but one that's been right by especially in the middle section underneath the gas tank, you want to stay away from that. Next, I try to buy from a trusted source, meaning I know the buyer. And I can do that in Southern California because I know the wheel circuits, and I know the people, and then I know the history of the chassis, and I'll look up the races they're in online, make sure they didn't DNF, things like that. So try to buy from a trusted source that said, yes, this is, this chassis has only been autocrossed, or it went wheel to wheel one season and never wrecked it, promise, kind of thing. The other thing you can test it is put the chassis on the ground and just roll it. Just roll it like on a flat surface, as flat as you can get on a driveway or anywhere in a street. And if it peels off to one side, it's bent. That's just a dead givevegive.
Yeah, because no one's going to set their alignment to do that. So ideally, the alignment's
even
set.
Even if you redid the alignment, it's still going to do it. And most of the time, and I've bent chassis, I've smashed into things and bent. As soon as we did that, you just roll it, the thing just like hooks off to the left, and you're like, okay. I had one chassis at National. I think it was in 10 or 11. It was a bent chassis, and I straightened it out, and it kind of over time worked its way back, and we got 5-6 guys, and we jumped on it and straightened it out again. And the test was I just rolled it on the ground. I rolled straight again, and boom, and and I won that year. So
is that a good way to check your alignment? Just roll it, or do you actually get out camber plates or something to check alignment? And how often would you do that?
Okay, well, alignment we use lasers actually, and the alignment is set up by these caster pills on almost all carts. And I have these new kind of fangled one called sniper pills, which I can do independent camber caster. But once you set it, it shouldn't move. For autocross, first off, for autocross, you're not going to bend a chassis. Unless you hit a cone at 100 miles an hour, you're not going to bend a chassis. So it's really only going to bend a chassis if you hit something wheel to wheel. And you got to hit it hard, too. And it does happen. So if you're in the market to buy one and it has been raced wheel to wheel, make sure it isn't scraped up underneath. Do the roll test. Try to buy it from a trusted source. If any one of those three things is not true, don't buy it. Because there's always another chassis down the line. There's always carts for sale. There's always people getting out of them. That's the nice thing about karting. You can always find a deal out there. You may have to wait a little longer, but you'll find a deal.
Yeah, I get on Craigslist every so often like, oh, look at that. I could just go to the track right over here, Centennial.
Well,
it's pretty close.
Exactly. Well, Craigslist is not the place to look. You want to look on ekartingnews.com. That's the big karting kind of website where all the forums are. And they have a for sale forum section in there. And so specifically one for chassis, too.
Thank you. Because I did buy a kart once, and it had the Osmo engine or something wacky, Cosmo, or something you couldn't find parts for. I never drove that thing. It never ran.
Yeah, and when you're new, you don't know these things. So, and if you're, talk to other parents who are in it, have been in it a couple of years, talk to anybody in kart mod, they'll give you decent advice. So,
okay. So one of the questions from the fans out there.
Okay.
You're fans of the 500 red
didn't know I
light.
had fans, don't you?
Yeah. When you're Superman on front of the cover, you've got fans. All the kids want to be
by
you.
The way. I did not plan that.
You wanted Spider-Man? Who'd you want?
No, Superman, but that was like a photo shoot. I'll tell you about the photo shoot they did for Sports Car. I showed up and I thought it'd just be and then they had to hand me this suit. We're going to do a Superman theme. I'm like, oh no. But I just had to go along with it. So anyway, it worked out okay.
Well, who is your superhero? Who should have you been?
As a kid growing up,
I don't know. You might still want to be a superhero.
Yeah, I watched a lot of Spider-Man when I was a kid, just the cartoons. Yeah. So, anyway, what was the last question you had there?
The 500 red light. The 500 red light.
Oh, okay. What do I do to cut lights at pros?
Yeah, somebody thinks you're like the pro at 500 red lights, or maybe consistent
okay.
low.
Well, one thing is, first off, the software changed on the tree last year, and so it caused problems with the carts. So before, if you rolled out of the stage light and you launched, you got a DNF, okay? But that was at the starter's discretion, okay? And I've worked starter. Now they took the starter out of it and they put it in the software. So if the software senses in any way, shape, or form the stage light come on or go off, before the green, they're going to score you a DNF. But the problem with the carts is we launch and then we have this front nose panel, okay? That's kind of a angle panel that goes from the nose cone up this. It hides the steering column. We call it the Nassau panel. Underneath the Nassau panels is open air, okay? So the beam can reconnect, and so I was getting scored all these like horrible like red lights last year, and so were other people. We couldn't figure out why, and it was we need to put a big piece of cardboard in there. So first thing, if you have in a cart, you got to stick a big honking piece of cardboard between your legs underneath the Nassau panel to block the stage light, so you don't artificially and incorrectly red light. Okay, and maybe a little flapper section out in front of the nose cone, so or on top of the nose cone. So that's the first thing. So that was a geometry change to be able to do. So anyway, so that's why they got that sorted out. My philosophy when I go to a pro is it slightly depends on the grip level, but like at nationals, when I launch, my tires will spin for just a split second, and then I hook up and go. So there, I watch the yellows, and when the first photon of light from that third yellow hits my eyeball, I go. I dump the clutch, hit the gas. I don't dump the clutch. I hit the clutch halfway because you can't dump it completely. And it depends on the engine, but mine, it'll bog it. And then floor it and go. And I'm usually right at 500-600 on those lights.
How long is one of those clutches lasting?
Forever, because these are Honda engines. They're motocross engines from the CR125 dirt bike, and they have an oil-based clutch, a wet clutch. And quite frankly, you can just abuse the hell out of them, and they'll never overheat. They're awesome. So they're designed for guys who are like climbing some monster dirt hill or something like that with a little two-stroke that doesn't have much torque, and they just floor it all the way and they clutch their way up. And so that clutch can take a ton of abuse. So that's not the problem. The problem is the motor doesn't have a lot of, the motor's not designed to launch a go-kart with big sticky tires, and it doesn't have a lot of torque. And so we only have like 20 pounds of torque. I mean, it was just unbelievably low number. The engine revs to 13,000 and produces a little over 40 to 45 horsepower, but there's no real torque, especially getting going. So you can't just dump the clutch all the way. You got to ease it out, which is not easy to do because the physical G-forces of the thing once it starts launching, and then you have to, and you work on the clutch with your hand, and you have to just massage it just right as you're letting it out. Too much clutch, and you'll bog it. Not enough, you're not going to be quick. So it's all about the clutch. And
it's all about the practice, like you say. Get to the track, practice, shifting, probably stopping and going if you care about pro solo.
Well, if you want to get into shifter karts, and you're like, all right, how do I learn how to drive? You got to go to a track and just get the shifting down. So it's so automatic. It's just like an automatic transmission. And we're doing like 20 shifts a run at any given autocross. I mean, there's constantly shifting. You just look at one of my videos or any video, and that just has to be completely automatic. You can't sit there and think about your shifting. If you do, you're dead. And that's okay. 1 or 2 trips to the track and learning how to shift it, and you're done. You got it down. And what you do is you don't memorize what gear you're in or nothing. You just constantly upshift when you wrap out the motor. What you do memorize is how many downshifts there are on a given turn. So every time you tap the brakes or hit the brakes for any turn or anything, you have to downshift. And you have to memorize just down 1 or down 2 gears or down 3.
Based on how long or how hard you're braking. One of those.
Correct.
Okay.
So like a big, braking zone from high speed will be down 3. So, but usually a tap of the brake somewhere on course, down 1. That's it.
Because with the lack of torque, so that's one thing I was wondering. Do you ever pick a certain line, assuming everything's all clean, based on the lack of torque, or since you can shift? I'm like, this is because of the kids. I thought they chose line. I guess you don't have to choose line because you always choose gear.
Yeah, I don't. No, the answer to your question is no. There's no line choice based off of gearing. I can choose any gear I want. And the lines we take as adults in the shifters are way different than the kids sometimes.
And how much you think it's similar to a car?
What we do versus a car?
Yeah.
High-speed cars? That's a good question. Similar, but we can cheat on certain things. There are certain sections of courses where we can just take flat out that the cars can't. And there's no thinking to it. Just go and take the shortest distance you can. Don't worry about setting up. Don't worry about this. The slalom is just flat out. The exit of slalom is flat out. The turn after it's flat out. The little, bus stop chicane after it's flat out. And then you got to make a decision what to do. Then you have to pick a line. And you say that's not fair, but that's just the nature of the. We're just skinny. We're just like tiny little vehicles that can snake through things quick.
Yeah,
we got a lot of grip.
And you're competing against the other people in karts, so that makes total sense. Fair, not fair. It's fair because you're against karts.
Yeah, exactly.
So it comes down to
it's not fair. It's not fair for packs, but it's already factored into packs.
Yeah.
So it's like.
So you get to pick the tightest line possible most everywhere?
No, it's not everywhere. It's just You're saying compared to cars.
Yeah, so all the slaloms and stuff, it sounds like, how tight can you get through that? You're not late apexing the first cone or something.
Yeah, here's what a kart's good at and what not good at. Compared to a car, compared to like a super stock car on Hoosier tires, we go around a sweeper exactly the same. We're no better than that, believe it or not. We're not good at sweepers. What we're good at is anything transitional and tight. Anything transitional and tight, we can just smoke everybody, including, B-Mod. But B-Mod can beat us on a course with big sweepers because they got, serious downforce with wings and stuff, and that's where they cream us. So that's why B-Mod in general is generally faster than us. But if it's some tight little twisty course, we can beat them. Only A-Mod can beat us after that. So that's what we're good at. We're good at braking, obviously accelerating. But we're only good at accelerating up to about 60. After that, it's not much. A car will do 0 to 60 in like 2.5 seconds or something like that. But it does 0 to 100 in like 7 seconds or something. It's horribly slow because the gears get really tall and there's a lot of aerodynamic drag on a kart. Once it gets up to speed, it's very dirty.
Oh, okay, so that's where I wasn't at Crows the last 2 years, but I think last year was super high speed.
Oh, God. Last 3 years. This year was a fun course, but the last ones they were flat out 6-gear courses, and I couldn't go any faster. It was because of headwinds. I just could not go any faster. My helmet was getting pulled off my head from the aerodynamics of low pressure above my helmet, and I got killed on packs if you look at those because I couldn't go any faster. So
can you change any gearing in K-Mod or no?
Oh, yeah. We can change. It's like a 10-speed bike. You can change the gear on the engine, and you can change the gear on the axle. You can get any combination you want.
So if you wanted to go faster there, you could change it where your top speed
was... Could. I did.
But you ran out of torque to get past the air.
No, even if you had torque, you just can't get past... I've road race karts, okay, like on big tracks. I've done it like twice now, and I learned a lot. A shifter kart by itself can go about 100 miles an hour. And just all out. But in a little train, like in NASCAR, like Talladega Night style, we can get 10 karts, we can go 110 miles an hour because we can all push each other and aerodynamically, get going. It's amazing. There's a lot of drag at high speed in a kart.
I could see on the autocross, be like, oh, I got a tailwind going out. I'm going to be a little quicker.
First off, autocross is much slower. We don't go faster than maybe 70 or something like that. But we're not fast in 6 gear. In a high-speed section of a course compared to a car that maybe hits, people talk about third-gear courses. Like, man, I hit third gear, Okay, so the fast cars, the GT3s and beyond, those cars, if you had a side-by-side little video, they'd just be destroying the kart, out-accelerating it, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's where they're not as hampered by the aerodynamics and such.
No, they're not. And they have power and gears that can deal with it, and we don't.
Yeah. We're
designed to run on a sprint course and only go as fast as maybe 60 miles an hour tops. But we do that extremely well.
Yeah.
After that, we're kind of average. And we're not real good on big sweepers, as I just mentioned. It just doesn't,
Yeah, but on a sweeper that's constant radius, once you get that wheel in the air, do you have to do anything special to keep it in the air the whole time? Because I imagine you turn the steering wheel wrong, can it come back down accidentally?
No. This all happens automatically if you have everything set up right. And you're not necessarily getting the wheel physically in the air. You just have to get it unloaded.
Would you ever... Okay. So I hear people saying...
And it depends on the chassis, too. You're not always physically, literally a tricycle. I just want to get that point across. Some chassis don't do that, and they actually still work. Okay, they just unload the tire a certain way.
Would you ever double apex a big sweeper or anything, or would you just always constant radius, probably?
It depends on the sweeper and the course design. If I needed to double apex it, I would.
And would that tire come back or get some load on it in between there, probably?
Yeah, it would.
That wouldn't matter, though.
Yeah, and then I get back up again as soon as I turn the wheel again. So.
Gotcha. Is anything special like decreasing radius? Is there anything really tricky for a kart?
No. Just dive in there, go in there faster than you normally would, and trail brake in.
Okay. I'm glad you brought up the trail braking. So trail braking is probably key in a kart, just like a car at some level?
Yeah. You can do it. It doesn't swap ends on it. For the shifters, yes. For the kids, it's real tricky because you just have to rear only brake. If I were a kid, like I was 10 years old, I'd just be braking in a straight line, let off and turn. You're asking too much to do both. You're right on the edge of spin it out. On a shifter, you're not because you're braking in a balanced fashion with both front and rear. So, and there's not tons of weight transfer, obviously, because there's no suspension, so to speak.
Yeah.
There's some, but not a lot.
And with the front tires biting, it probably helps pop that wheel up again. So it's easier probably in adults.
Yeah. So you do trail brake. I do it all the time.
Do you have data that you look at on the cart at all, ever?
No, I just have good video. That's what I got. Spent a lot of time getting video sorted. That's really hard to get video on a cart because the environment is so harsh. Because one, the vibration is nutty from the engine. Two, it's hard to get a good angle, and three, you have the ignition is so electrically noisy it can literally disturb the electronics in the camera too. I've had GoPros freak out on me. I've broken GoPros where I shook it so badly the battery contact stopped contacting the main circuit board, and then the camera would just turn itself off. So I have like an expensive little camera system from Italy right now.
That's where I wonder if the 3-axis gimbals, if someone was dare get an Osmo or something and mount that.
Yeah. And back in the, I don't know about that camera, but back in the Randy Chase had Chase Cam back in those days.
Yep.
And he was in San Diego at the time. He's in Tennessee now, but I was kind of one of his guinea pigs. And I test things and I tell him, all right, this is not working. Electrically, it fries and this and that. He'd go make his little changes or whatever. But it's always one of the harshest environments for any kind of video, any kind of race vehicle.
Well, yeah, when it's even on your helmet or something, or someone's helmet, it's like, oh my goodness, the vibration.
Yeah, it doesn't come out real well. No, well, that's because you're bouncing around as a person, okay, in the cart. So you always want to mount it something solid.
And how tight is your seat, or how tight should your seat be? Do you have any move back and forth, or is that cracking ribs if you do? You
know what? I used to have the theory of just super, super, super tight. And then I've moved away from that. You need a little bit of, you got to be able to breathe, and you got to be able to relax. So, you have a little bit of slop is okay, but you also have to do it wearing a rib protector. So if you're going to try out seats, put on your rib protector, sit in them, see what they're like.
And find one. Can you take a big deep breath when you put on your rib protector? How tight is that?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I
learned that wheel to wheel. When I first started, I made everything super tight. Okay. And for autocross, that was okay. But when we went to wheel, it was so uncomfortable and so and just so tiring not be able to get a good breath in the middle of a 20-lap main or something like that. So I was like, then I loosened things up a bit, and it's fine. It works fine for me now.
Yeah, that's one of the 4 or 5 things I have from when I bought the cart and the stand and all that stuff. And since I cracked my ribs in hockey a few times last year, I actually took it out and wore it a few times just for in case I try to do this again. Let's not re-injure the same area. So I'm glad I still have that if I get back in a cart. I probably made it so tight. I'm like, wow, I need to breathe though, because I'm running around out here on the ice.
Yeah.
So let's get into the whole aspect. You show up at an event, your cart's all perfect, everything's ready. Walking course. Okay. What are you thinking as you walk course? How many times has that changed over the years?
It has changed. Here's what I do. Here are my philosophies. One, let's talk about nationals. It's kind of the best thing to talk about. So when I go there, when you have a nationals level course, one thing I do when I walk it is first thing I do is I don't memorize the whole course. I chop it up into sections, and I memorize each section. I have a plan for each section, and I define a section as a related part where if you messed up the beginning part, you'd still be messed up until you can reset and get fresh again. And a reset area is kind of like, it's usually a straight where you can, if you really messed up a whole section, you can get on the straight and kind of get all sorted out again and get going again. And so when I give a nationals course, it's about 5 sections per course. On a pro solo course, it's about 3 sections. Usually the going out, the turnaround, and then the finish. And so that's my mental plan in terms of memorization. The other thing I do is when I'm driving it, no matter what happens in that section, I forget about it. So even if I did the section well or I made a mistake, as soon as I'm done with it, I hit the little reset section, I throw it away and then reload in my brain the next section and go. And it works both ways. It works if you made a mistake, you learn to forget about it and keep going. Because I've made mistakes on even winning runs, and I don't let it bother me for the rest of the run. Also, the opposite's true. How many times have you know someone who they had perfect run 3/4 of the way through the run at nationals, and then they blew the finish, right? Because they were thinking about, oh, what a great run this is. I better not screw it up.
Been there, done
it.
Right?
Yeah. Well, this kind of mental strategy fixes that problem, because you throw away each section as soon as you're done with it, whether you did well or not. Throw it away and grab the next section. Throw it away and grab the next section until you get the finish section, and then when you cross the lights, then you start celebrating or whatever. And it I don't know. It evolved. I don't know how I came up with that strategy, but I like it. because it was too hard for me to memorize an entire course, like everything I was going to do. But I can memorize little sections. And I don't worry about the reset sections because it's pretty obvious what you're going to do. It's just some straight where you're just going to floor it and get up, set up wide for your next turn, right? So it's an easy part that you can kind of figure out. So that's what I mentally do. The other thing I do is I look for cheats. And what I mean by a cheat is everybody, knows, set up wide, late apex, put down the power, and they apply this to and the mistake I see people doing is they apply this to every single turn, no matter what. And that's not always true. On a given course, especially a national levels course, you're going to have one turn maybe where you can totally cheat. Okay. And you don't have to set up wide. You don't have to late apex. You want to early apex and totally cheat it because it's going to work. And the reason it could is it's kind of a long description, but I have something I called terminal velocity. That's a term I made up. And what that is that's the fastest a given vehicle can take a turn. Okay. So if you're entering that turn below the vehicle's terminal velocity, that means you don't have to set up for it. Okay, unless you're way below it. Because let's say there's a turn where you could take it at 40 miles an hour, but you're really taking it at 35 because you just got out of a slalom and you couldn't get up to 40. So don't bother going 10 feet over to set up for it. Just hug the inside and go. I see people walking course like they just always do these perfect little late apex setup things everywhere and disregard kind of the input and output conditions of a given turn. What's before it and what's after it. My favorite is like the finishes where there's timing lights and some turn before it because people will, again, set up late and do all this stuff. Yeah, if there was a long straight after that, I would do the same thing. But if the timing lights are there, I'm going to cheat like crazy and hug the inside and take the shortest time across. And I'll be bent out of shape sideways, but I'll just cross the finish lights and I don't care because it's not a long straight there. It's just the timing lights. So that's what I do. I look for cheats. Everywhere I can where I can cheat in early apex and just do things you're not supposed to do.
Well, actually, that's one of the rules that you're cutting down distance. So as John Ames would always say, never go extra distance for extra speed. And in this case, never go extra distance when you can't have the speed to enter this turn anyway as fast as you could take it if there was a different feature before it.
You said it better than me. So I look for those little things. And they're not always there, but you can usually find one on every course. Not nationals or not always, but it's and I love it when I find one. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. There was one at the Pro Solo finale like 2 years ago. The whole finish section, everybody set up wide for it, and I didn't. I went diving for the inside, and I was completely out of shape coming out of this turn, but I didn't care because it was one little turn after that in the other direction, and the timing lights were right there, and I was just horribly late and out of shape, but it didn't matter. I snaked through there quicker than anybody.
And those seem pretty similar the last several years. Do you remember how many slalom cones were before the finish lights, or back and forth, 2 or 3?
What, that particular example?
That one. Yep.
It had nothing to do with slalom. I think this was 2015, I think. And there was an open section where you could just floor it, and you had this big sweeping turn and then a real tight turn after that and the finish lights. So everyone set up super wide and did all these things and made sure they late apex that big sweeping turn so they could set up for the finish. But you're setting up for the finish to put power down for a long straight. I'm setting up for the finish to whip through there as fast as I can.
Yeah, cut distance basically. That's like
and granted I can cheat a little bit because the car can do things cars can't do. But other people, I saw some other cars doing it, like Tom Berry did it too. And I was like, oh, he read my book, kind of thing. Like, I was working course when he ran. I didn't watch other people, but I was like, oh, he did exactly what I was going to do, before I ran too. Yeah. I was like,
he read my mind and watched the other cars.
Exactly. I was like, so look for cheats, basically. They're not always there. Sometimes the other one is chalk lines. They lay the chalk line down on the course. Well, sometimes the proper line is way outside the chalk line, and nobody takes advantage of it. It's like, it's there. Do it, Chalk lines mean nothing. I just ignore them completely. And I don't care if they get my tires all white and everything, but it doesn't matter. You still have grip.
Yeah, if you don't care, cars really should not. I've never heard anybody saying chalk's going to slow me down, but your whole tire could be coated by a little bit.
Oh, it has. I've seen my videos, and it's a big puff of smoke that comes off and hits my camera. But I love to cheat even before the start lights at nationals. Sometimes you'll have courses where there's a turn and the start lights are a good 25 yards down further. You could do anything you want before that. I see people just hug the inside and go. I'm like, no, go way outside wide and build up a lot of speed before you even hit the timing light. Things like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's where Kevin Youngers had that one, I don't know, quite a few years ago on the plain side, not as really tight technical one that you probably are thinking was nice and open. But He had that super long, I don't know, it was 50, 60, 70 yards before the timing lights. And like you're saying, you want to be at the timing lights unless there's a tight turn after them at the maximum speed.
Even if there is a tight turn after, you want to be at the maximum speed because you always hit the brakes.
You want to cover as much distance as possible at the highest speed possible for as long as possible, basically.
So I do that as much as I can because everyone's going to late apex and this and that. Other things I do, I also walk the real line. And I mean that by two things. One, at nationals, you can walk the race line, like the perfect race. You get there Monday and you're walking the course. It doesn't matter because by Tuesday, let's say you're running later in the week or whatever, the line's going to be dirty. And you have no choice but to run one particular line that's clean. Because even they run the street sweepers through there, that street sweeper dude he just runs the line that he finds. He doesn't run like the proper race line and clean the proper race line, meaning it'd be nice to set up wide, but it's all marbles out there. So don't even bother. Don't even bother walking. You need to have a plan for the actual real race line at nationals. The other one is people walk and they'll all right, let me give the example of you have a slalom and then maybe 50 yards and then a classic turn, okay? And they finish the slalom and the slalom kicks you off in the wrong direction, so you have to get way over to set up. And they just think they can get there. I'm like, no, you're going 30 miles an hour, 35. Car cannot physically get way over that. You just can't do it. Even if you did, you had to slow way down to do it. So don't walk the real line. You're actually going to run.
I think I'm going to make shirts for all of us. I actually speak up to some people. I say, how can you get there? Are you going to slow down to get over there?
Exactly. And I see people do that all the time. I'm like, no, dude. One time, it was back in the late 80s. I was young, I was learning. And we had this one course at A&M, at the Riverside Annex, that it was, I don't know, it was just some course. And I really walked it a ton, and I had a marvelous plan what I was going to do, and this and that. And then I ran it, and it was totally different than when I ran. And it was just when we started getting video cameras, too. So I had a camera mounted. I looked at the tape later, and I was like, oh, my God, what I'm walking is theoretically not possible. That's when I learned you got to walk the real line within reason,
Yeah, and then if you actually watch the video and can remember what you walked, you'll probably clue in better and better to what you can actually drive.
Yeah. So, and then my last kind of thing is I get little tidbits, I don't know, just from all aspects of life, I guess. And I swear to God, I was watching the U.S. Open golf tournament a couple years ago, and it was just starting, and they were interviewing Jack Nicklaus. No, he's retired now, and I don't know how many U.S. Opens he won, but if you don't know golf, basically at the U.S. Open, they take a given golf course and they make it twice as hard. I mean, they really, really, really mess with the pros, okay? They make it just impossible hard. And they do it on purpose, okay? And Jack Nicklaus said, and it was interesting in this interview, he said he loved on the practice day. The practice day was always on Wednesday. The tournament starts on Thursday. He'd go for the practice round, and in the locker room, he listened for the guys complaining about the course because he knew right then he could eliminate them from contention. And the lesson I got from that is you hear people complain about certain autocross. Oh, it's too tight. I can't do it. Oh, it's too wide open. I don't know where the breaking points are. Right then and there, they're not going to win. So if you're one of those people who I hate this course because don't do it. Even if the course is not in your liking, you better learn to like it. You better love it. Just love it for what it is and embrace it because it's not going to change. And if it highlights a deficiency in your driving your car, you better concentrate on fixing that right then and there. One, you'll probably get a little bit better. And then two, you'll do better because all the people complaining are not going to do well. Learn to love the course. That's another lesson I got.
And I can
whatever it is
relate to that because at Pro Solos, I'd be like, oh, the courses are not the same. And if that's bugging me, I got to go, no. I know they're not the same. Like actually at the Pro Finale, maybe 2 years ago, I realized right before dark, I said, hey, the corn side, so the west side, there was a whole block extra once you turned and went out. I went and told, it's too late. I was like, oh, well, actually, they're different. I should realize this if I can take any advantage of that.
Right, exactly. And for me, Crow's Landing this year, every year, it's super bumpy for the karts because it's high speed. And this year, I just ignored it. And funny thing is, I got used to it. I just concentrated on the driving. I forgot about all the bumps and stuff. So
yeah, and that's where I got lucky enough up in Packwood. They had a really small, tight course, and that's the first challenge I ever won. And even though I was thinking this is no fun, it's this. Luckily, I was like, hey, it's the attitude once again. It doesn't matter. You never know what can happen if you go out there and drive well. And your whole point here, I just want to hit it home again. Attitude is so key.
It can be because it's such a mental game. Autocross is a mental game. It's not a physical game.
And I want to hear more on that, because I totally agree that once people, if you're somewhat quick, you've got enough years in there, if you know how to execute at all ever, if you've been quick, I think it's, at least I know for me, it's all mental at that point of, can I get into the zone and stay there and do the simple things I know I need to do.
Yeah. Now, the other piece of advice I do is kind of get to myself too is know your enemy. So people, they go into a given class, they go to nationals, and they just so concentrate on, oh, Mark Daddy was in my class, or High Cotter's in my class, and this and that, and they concentrate on other people, and I just got to get 2 more tenths and this and that. They concentrate on time and people. Those people and that time, that's not what you're competing against. It really isn't. What you're competing against is the course itself. Your enemy is the course and nothing but the course. This is solo. It's not wheel to wheel. If it was wheel to wheel and you had to run against High Cotter, okay, well, it's, on the first lap, you may get, you have a plan. If he gets ahead, you'll catch him and pass him in turn 1 and beat him. That's wheel to wheel, right? You don't think about your speed or your time, your lap time. You just think about beating him. In solo, it's pure time, and it's you versus the course. And ignore everybody else. Ignore your times. Always think about how you can improve each run and how you can defeat the course. Concentrate on the course. That's another thing I do.
Yeah, like who's in your class or anything else doesn't matter. One thing I do at times pretty well, John Ames said he would never check the clock. He never checked his times.
Yeah, over time, I've been doing that less and less myself too. So it's funny. I don't concentrate on the time. Even if I'm way behind, I know why I'm way behind. If you don't know why you're way behind, that's the problem you have to solve.
So you're way behind. Take me through. You finish a run. You deleted every section as you went through it. You forgot about that because what's ahead matters, not what's behind. You can't fix that.
Right.
You finish. Do you then replay? What do you do to get ready for the next
run?
I
do 2 things. Well, I cheated a little bit on describing my little sectionalized memorization. Yes, I forget each section as I drive through it when I'm done with it, but I also make a mental note of any mistakes I make and jot it down in my head real quick. Like, oh, messed that turn up. Ooh, ah. And I do keeping track of what I got to clean up. Okay. And also video helps, and convenient video that you can watch between runs, even with a co-driver. And you can kind of see like, ooh, okay, I blew the shift there, and I took that way too fast, and I got to speed up here. So I'll go through my mental notes and I'll go through video. That's what I'll do.
And how many things do you think you're picking out? Best case, worst case, 1 thing, 3 things. How many would you dare try to fix in the next run?
As many as I can. And I only have, in a typical nationals course, I'll have like 2 mistakes or something like that in the first run or something like that, or 2 or 3. And then I start getting down to just 1 mistake or something like that. At a pro, it's different because a pro, you have multiple days. So it's Saturday night is when I really review everything. I'll go over videos, I'll go over a plan, and then the Sunday morning walk is critical. That's the most critical walkthrough. That's where I'll if I need to find more time, I know there's more time out there, but I didn't know where it was. That's when I'll really look to see, do I change the gearing on the kart? Do I carry speed more, go daring, this high speed section, things like that.
Oh, and how many times do you walk in these courses?
That's a good question. There's the real walk, and then there's the social walk. The social walk is when you walk with your buddies and you're chit-chatting and you're just kind of getting it down, and the real walk is when you're by yourself. So a nationals course, a good 5 times, I'd say. After that point, it just doesn't soak in as, once I have my plans, I'll walk the course until I have the plan totally in my head and all the sections down. And however long that takes, that's what I do. So when I have my little sectionalized maps in my head for my 5 sections or whatever, and the associated plan, and I can reproduce it in my head mentally by just standing there and closing my eyes, that's when I know I got it.
And when you're doing this, I hear a lot of people say there's key cones they're looking for. What are you programming in each of these sections?
Yeah,
entries into things and
yeah. When you walk a course, there's cones that matter and cones that don't, and literally 80% of the cones don't matter. And so absolutely, I just memorize the cones that matter: the apex cone, the entry cone, the exit cone that you don't want to dink with your rear putting on power. Things like, you're right. That's pretty obvious. But some people get hung up on, all sorts of things.
How about
they'll see a wall of cones, but it really only matters the very first cone.
Yep.
Because if you hit the first one, you're going to mow down 6. Who cares if you mow down 6? Just concentrate on the first one.
So you're walking the course. For me, I will stop and go, okay, I gotta look over there to that section next. Let's say if I broke it into several sections, are you doing that? And this is leading to how much are you looking ahead, and are you programming looking ahead if you do that during your walks?
All I do is walk each section and have the plan in place. That's it. I don't know how to describe it beyond that. And then figure out the hard part is figuring out where the boundary layers are. Where does a section end and a new one start? Sometimes it's not obvious, but most of the time it is. And sometimes it's not obvious and I break it anyways. All right, from here on out is, the last section, and then here's the finished section or something like that. So all I do is just walk the section, memorize the plan, and that's it.
So you have a bunch of a bunch of plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E done.
That's it.
Or Pro Solo plan ABC left, plan ABC right.
That's all my little brain can handle. And the other thing is in a cart, it comes up fast. I mean, it's a fast vehicle, okay? So it's whipping through faster than you think. So you can't memorize the whole damn thing in one shot. You just can't. I can't. So this little sectionalized plan kind of works for me. So
I like that. I could see it breaking down. Okay, this is an important feature, so that's either beginning, or like you're saying, the beginning of something could be for me. This feature really stands out to me as important. I've got to get into this properly. Oh, that's tricky over there. I better make that part of a very important plan to get into it or out of it or something.
Yeah, but it's more on the reset points, because the reset points,
you have time to get back over to set up for the next one.
That's where you have time to mentally throw away what just happened and then reload the next plan into your head. Okay, all right, I just screwed up the start. That's okay. Here we go. Heading for this new slalom in the middle. It's going to cross the whole thing. And then there's a big sweeper at the end and our tight right-hander and da-da-da. And, okay, this is what we have to do here. Boop, go, And then all of a sudden the slalom's right on you and you're just going.
Yeah, I can see like the Pro Solo finales. You have the straight out, whatever. You're doing 3 or 4 or 5 slaloms. You're turning left. Either I'm going to reset after I turn left, because usually, especially I bet in a cart, that's probably a flat out in the top sections. Mm-hmm. And then you probably have another section 2 maybe is when you head back toward the timing back, I guess, north. I'm trying to break one of those into 3, and
it's hard to break. Well, most of them break into 3. Most pros, and the pro finale has some big courses too. But although they went for the course design philosophy of making them a little smaller last year, so sometimes it's 4. Yeah. It just depends. Let it just walk it and let it flow for you.
Yeah, I like the thought though. Where is there time to throw out and load a new one? Really, it's what's coming up next.
That's what counts. That's what counts. And I artificially insert a reset point if the section's too long to memorize. Like it's all related to each other and it's so long and complicated. I'll just stick a reset section in the middle of it mentally. But otherwise, it's time to all right, relax. What are you going to do now? Go do it.
Are you ever walking one nationals course or both of them before you run the first one?
Well, I'll do it. Here's what I'll do. Let's say I'm running, they call it plain and corn. I'm still stuck with east and west, so I'm going to call them east and west. Let's say I'm running west first. I will walk both of them just so I know what I'm dealing with. Usually one's like the tight technical course and one's the big sweeper kind of high speed course, or vice versa. So I want to know what I'm dealing with so I know how I'm going to do in class versus other people. So all right, this is going to be tight. I'll have maybe a 10th lead here or not. That's okay. I'll make up for it on the next course. So the opposite course that I'm going to run the next day, I'll only walk it once and that's it. And then I'll walk the course I'm going to run over and over and over and over again until we run it. And then that evening, I'll walk the next course over and over and over again. And I get out there in the morning and do it too.
Nice. And so
I sample it. I sample the other course just to see what I'm dealing with. And that's it. Because otherwise it mentally, it's too much.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to this looking ahead. Do you think you look ahead well? As fast as you're going, I would think you have to. And this ties in, do you ever play video games, racing games, any of that?
Okay. All the video games, every single racing game I've ever played, I stink at them. I'm so bad at them, I don't even know how to tell you, because my brain just isn't programmed for them. There's no feedback for me. I can't do it. And I stay away from them intentionally. It's funny. It's like take our Air Force right now. Our Air Force is moving towards drones, right? Well, the Air Force is kind of, what I heard is they're figuring out that they take regular pilots and they make them into drone pilots. They're not that good at drone pilots. But it takes a kid who plays video games, he becomes an excellent drone pilot. It's like taking someone out of a natural environment, putting them in an artificial environment. Some people can translate that. I can't. I just can't do it. So the answer is no. I suck at it. It's just it doesn't work.
Yeah, you take away all the stuff you're relying on.
I'm relying on seat of the pants, feel. I can't,
Yeah, that's where
I can't feel it.
a lot of these people I'm calling youngsters are not all, they're all super, super youngsters. But like James Yam and these guys are saying, they did lots of video games, and because of that, the screens are so small, they don't have to turn their head to look ahead. Even Brian Highcotter says that. So they've learned to take in so much visually that they can hop in a car often and be quick and competitive. And
That's interesting.
And I'm trying to challenge myself. I've got the whole setup, but I haven't been using it much. The big thing for me is the braking, whereas they have upgraded pedals. I haven't ordered, but I keep thinking I will. So you get more of a real feel in the braking. That's what throws me off, because the wheels now have force feedback, which helps. But it's interesting how James Young, he swears he doesn't look ahead, and that's what people tell him. You're not looking ahead. You're not turning your helmet. And he goes, yeah, it's because I played games, and you don't have to turn your head there. So he's memorizing sections, he said, where he goes, okay, no, I know what's coming next, so I have to set up on this cone, I guess, in this fashion to get through it. Instead of looking ahead, are you looking ahead, or are you memorized so well of a plan that you don't have to, let's say, turn your head for a 180, or do you cheat across?
No, I don't. I look ahead, but I'm pulling off my little sub-plan, and I'm going through that mentally as I go through. So that's my script, so to speak.
And your script is be on this cone at this angle. The script is early apex, this cheat one right here, late apex, that key cone over there.
Yeah, and it leads to this section, the next section, which is part of the plan, and then the next, and then I reset and go to the next plan.
Okay.
So do I look ahead? Yeah. Do I have a tunnel vision? No. I'm old school, I guess.
But can you give us the what's going through your head? Section 1 is, or take us back to if you remember Crow's Landing, if you had a plan for one of the sides, slalom, late apex, to get into it or something. What are you really telling yourself?
Good question. I never thought about it.
Or maybe you're doing mental imagery more so of this versus.
Yeah, that I do. I have a mental image of what I'm doing, and I just follow it. And that mental image runs fast because the cart is fast, right? Because you got to be. It can't be a slow image. It's got to zip through, and then I zip through the cart, and it matches. That's why if I watch – one time I went to Nat, was in 2007. Nat, remember it was at Heartland Park? That tiny little postage stamp lot that had no grip. I hated that place. I got a hold of a good video. I ran like Thursday, Friday. I got a hold of a really good – class-winning video on like CSP. And Randy Chase had it. And I watched it over and over and over again. I had it down. I mean, I had the line. I had everything. Then I went to run the course, and it ran so much faster for me, it blew me away. Like, I didn't run well. And I realized right then and there, like, one, if you're going to watch a video, make sure it's the same speed as the car that you have. Don't watch something faster or don't watch something slower. If you want to, if you're running Thursday, Friday at Nationals and you want to watch a Tuesday, Wednesday video. And just make sure it matches your car. And I don't, you're asking a good question. I don't know what the answer is. I just have my mental map in my head, my plan, and I just execute it for each section, and then just switch to the next plan when I hit my little reset zones. That's it. And it's easy to look ahead in a cart there's two things. There's one good thing bad, one thing good. Good thing good is we have tremendous visibility. We have nothing, no A-pillars, no hoods, no nothing. We can see everything. You're naked. It's like you're flying on the ground on a magic carpet a half inch off the ground. Okay. The bad part is you're only 2.5 feet off the ground on your eye level. So you're at the same level as the cones. So if you look, you can see a sea of cones. So you got to focus on what's ahead of you. And that's coming up fast. So.
And this whole, everything shifting wise is just, you're not even thinking about it. Because you practice so much.
Yep.
So with practice, you're using your ears. So it's another sense you're using to know when to shift.
Yes.
And how much your braking coordinates with how many downshifts. Correct.
That just comes with pure practice. And that's not hard to learn.
Yeah, that's just track time. That's hours and hours and hours or something at the track.
Yeah. That's about at least 2 weekends worth of practice time for a beginner. At least get that down.
And that's where, talking to Nick Chu, who was Rookie of the Year last year, he has like a 10 horsepower 4-stroke. I'm like, oh, no, that sounds like something I could take to the track, especially if I get my kids into this. Where I don't have to hopefully mess with as much, although like you're saying, probably vibration. Something's going to fall apart, but I guess a track is better playing around than at an autocross event when you drove across the country and have it break. Yeah.
So nothing wrong with a good old kart track. Good Saturday. You'll learn a lot.
Cool. So we went through the walking. The mental, when you get back, you go through and review any of your mistakes. You look at video if you can. You get your game plan. Are you doing any mental exercises, crosses, or anything? Is there anything else you're thinking to stay calm? I know people perform best. You have to know when you perform best or how. And it's probably not saying, hey, I got to beat Highcotter. Is there anything you're going through if you've got nerves or anything?
Yeah. Well, yes. I ignore the rest of the class. I focus on defeating the course. And a while back, I read a good sports psychology book, and I cannot remember the title of it. It was written by a professor at UCSD, University of California, San Diego. And this guy was he's a mental psychology, sports psychology coach for a lot of pro golfers. And golf is, it's just like, it's very, very, very mental. Okay. And you can psych yourself out in golf pretty easily. And he had all these tips in the book, but one of them struck home with me, and that was just concentrate on the first thing you have to do. So, for example, this is a golf stroke. If you had to sit there and let's say you're ready to tee off, if you had to think about all the things you got to do in that golf stroke, all right, nice backswing, and don't hook it, and keep your head down, and follow through, and you'll never get a golf swing off. You just can't think about it all that quickly. Just concentrate on the first thing you got to do, which is a good backswing, and the rest of it will take care of itself because you did so much practice. All the muscle memory will take care of itself. So, and I use this for challenges at pros. All I concentrate on, if I'm in a challenge and I'm going deep into the challenge, is just cut a good light. Just cut a good light. Even if you got to fix a mistake on course, just cut a good light. And by the time you get there to that point in the course, you'll fix that mistake. Everything else will follow through. So at a regular autocross event, like at nationals, last run, you got to get some more time to get the win or whatever. I just concentrate on the first thing I'm going to do after I break the lights, and then the rest of it will take care of itself. If you try to think about too much, it's going to be tough. Keep it simple.
I like it. And that's where sometimes when I'm feeling nerves, I'll do some things, look at my hands. I'm pretty good at relaxing. But at a normal solo nationals or any nationals type course or solo course, I always look at the first 2 or 3 turns thinking, okay, that's where I'm going. I've got to do that. Or I'll watch the car in front of me and go, okay, I've got to execute A, B, and C. You're even simplifying more. Focus on the very simplest, the first light, or let's say the first turn if I want to late apex or be somewhere, I could just focus on one simple part.
Yeah. Yep. Keep it simple, because the rest of it, you've done it a million times. You'll figure it out. Just get the first thing down, or concentrate on the first mistake you have to clean up. Unless you have 2 parts of the course, just concentrate on the first one. The second one, make mental note of what you're going to do, but don't think about that as you're at the start line. Okay.
Yeah, because
Ross pro. Yeah. You think about that at a pro, they're not going to cut a good light. You're going to red light. You're going to do something stupid. You're going to some.
Yeah, Ross Bentley, I think, would say load the program. Just get into the program, get it running. What's the first part of it? It's the getting the good light, or it's the first turn up there, or the first mistake. Because once you're going, you should just be driving. Because we know like you said, we've seen it a lot of times. Yeah, just get into it.
So other nationals tips I give people is whatever car you're running, or it's a go-kart, whatever the vehicle is. Let's say you moved into a new one or something. Get it sorted out completely and fully prepped by June, let's say. And then learn how to drive it. And I got that advice from John Ames, actually. I met John Ames the first time in 1991 at the very first national tour event when I came through Texas. He had an ESP Mustang, and he came down from Colorado, and I bought course with him once. And I'm like, hey, can you give me some advice? I was young. And the advice he gave me was sort out your car, get it sorted out, totally prepped, as good as you can get it, and then leave it alone, and then learn how to drive it. And he's right. And so the mistake I see people make going into nationals is they try new in August. They're like, oh, we found these new shocks. Let's put the new shocks on. And they're still trying to sort them out with their nationals. Or they try a different set of tires, so that leads into another rule of mine, which is don't change anything unless you have to going into nationals. Don't change anything unless you totally blow up your motor and you got to rebuild it, or something dramatic happened. You have to do it. I see people do that all the time going to nationals, just making a last minute change to a different tire, different shock, different car, and they're still preparing the car, kind of thing. So the car must be completely sorted out by the beginning of the summer, and then you got to learn how to drive it and be the master of that vehicle. You have to know every last little nuance of its behavior, because if it misbehaves, you'll know what to do. True,
and that way, if it's the same, you also probably notice if something changes, or some bushing's bad, or a shock went bad, because all of a sudden it's different.
You get the nationals, and you have all this OPR you never dealt with before, other people's rubber, and you'll know something's off, and you'll know what to change your tire pressures and scrape the rubber, whatever. You'll make adjustments because you know the car. So.
Yeah, and keep it simple. And that I see so many people that want to change all the things. In this case, if you restrict yourself from doing that, you probably have more time to focus on just the driving, the feel, etc.
Yeah, you got enough to do.
So were you competitive in anything? Did you play sports, anything before this, or was this a newfound competition fun?
It's funny. When I was young, like up to about 10, 12 years old, I was into everything. Okay. And in particular, I was into baseball. Well, what happened was all of a sudden I couldn't hit. Like I could not hit. In fact, I went through the entire season of Little League. I think I was 11 years old or something like that. I had a 0.00 batting average or something. I was so embarrassed I quit. And in fact, I never played any other like serious sport after that. Well, it turns out my vision was terrible, and I didn't know it. And I had horrible. And I finally, like being in high school, I remember I flunked like some Spanish test. Like the teacher put a test up on the old overhead projectors. Remember those things that used to write with a fancy felt tip pen? And I just bombed it. I couldn't read it. I was too embarrassed to like raise my hand and say I need to go to the front row or something. And I mean, just complete F. And the teacher's like, I was an A student in Spanish because I was just good at Spanish. And the teacher's like, what's going on here? I'm like, I couldn't see it. And so I went to my mom. I'm like, I think I need my eyes checked. I had my eyes checked. The doctor was like, this kid's like 2400 vision. How does he even see anything his whole life? It's like, and so, and I remember as like a little kid be watching cop shows and stuff, and be like, even Adam 12, like, they're chasing after somebody and they're reading the license plate, on the radio and stuff. I'm like, I used to think that's impossible. You can't read a license plate on a car. You just can't do it. And then I had such bad vision. So anyway, I got washed out of, so I became like, just kind of a high school geek, just into computers and stuff. And so I never got into any sports. And so then I got back into it as an adult. I played tennis and, other things. So it's like auto racing was, just kind of one of the things I was good at when I got to the, young adulthood. So
it helps to see.
Yeah, it does. But the good part is I have all my joints intact. I'm 50 years old and I can run around a tennis court like anybody. Nothing hurts. I haven't blown out any ACLs, don't need a hip replacement. It's all good,
Oh, no kidding. I'm glad I didn't go to a small college. Just played basketball at Texas A&M's Reed building there forever and ever. Because those people so many of them have totally wrecked knees and ankles and such.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So be nice to your connecting tissue.
Yeah. And that's up for all of us parents. Get our kids' eyes checked. That reminds me, I only finally tried out in baseball, was in minor league. Bored as of no other. Don't remember if I ever hit well or didn't hit well. But I do remember them at some point, maybe it was middle school, you need glasses. I didn't really ever wear them until finally I got contacts in high school. But huge deal.
I compensate for it. And when I was younger, I didn't realize I did.
Yeah.
I'd sit in the front row. I'd do things. And what happened in baseball was I got to the faster pitch leagues. Then I couldn't pick up the ball. In the slower pitch leagues, I could hit. And I could play outfield because I had plenty of time to set up underneath the pop-up and catch it. But a fast pitch, league, I was done. I couldn't see the damn ball.
Yeah, the fuzzy ball didn't appear until it was going right by you.
I remember one of my older brothers said, just watch the laces rotate. And I kept thinking, what laces? What is he talking about?
The big blurry thing does not have or the little blurry thing does not have laces.
I was done.
And there are stars in the sky. No, there's not. You've got a telescope.
So I'm a late bloomer when it comes to athletics. We'll just say that. So.
Oh, neat. Let me see if there's any other questions. I know I had some other questions. So, I want to write down the sponsor. So, is it 7th? I should know this because I've been to his place and picked up a cart there.
Oh, okay.
Which websites would you like me to link to, if any?
Just 7thgear.com. It's spelled out 7th-gear.com. So, Eric, that's Eric's website. He sells he's like a junkyard man in a way. He's got he's the king of like vulture capitalism. He finds race teams in LA, and there's tons of them that just flat out get out of the business and they move on to something else. And he buys their whole thing. He buys their trailer and their 10 carts, and then he's got just tons of inventory. And he sells it all on eBay and stuff like that. So he's really good at it.
Yeah, I went to his house and he knows a lot. I started asking questions and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done this. It's already dark.
Yeah, exactly. He knows more than I do, and he lets me know it. So he still teaches me things. So. We were arguing about the setup at Crows, over things. And he was right. I have to say, damn it, he was right. I hate it when he's right.
Did you change it in time to make a difference?
Yeah, we changed. Well, it was at Fontana. We argued over it. And then at Crows, we changed it his way, and it kind of worked. And I was like, damn, he's right. So picked up another little tip. 20 years into karting, and I'm still learning things. And one thing about karting, too, is the paradigms are so different than a car. Just you have to take everything in a car and just throw it away, do something different. It really is different.
Yeah, the fact you have to lift or get all the weight off an inside wheel, that blew my mind when I started researching way back when.
But other things like let's say camber in the front. Like in a car, you put in negative camber. Makes obvious sense. Get rid of contact patch. Not in a cart. Doesn't matter. It's not about contact patch. It's about weight jacking. So you actually put negative camber in, you lose front grip. So.
Oh, wow.
It's the opposite. It's just the complete opposite.
Let's hear about probably a love for pro solos. You've got 2 overall pro solo championships for the overall.
Yes, and those were actually very proud of both of those. They were a lot of fun. The first time I won was in 2014. That was I want to say a planned victory, but I was really attacking it. That's what I wanted to do. Like it was like last something in solo that I really haven't won yet. And in fact, I never even won a challenge. That was the first challenge I actually won. But I got 2 second places going into that one. And you know what? In fact, the pro finale, that particular challenge, that one I just do really well at that challenge. And there's reasons why. Like the past 5 years, I've made it to the final round 4 times. And I've won it twice and lost twice. So that particular challenge I do really well. And the reason is the cart is super consistent there because 1, there's tons of rubber. 2, it's really hot out. It's like 95 degrees. The hotter the better. Because the carts are really designed to run on hot tires on a rubbered up track in Europe. Okay. And they're not designed to run on cold tires on a green track. They can do it. They're just not designed for it. And you will, once you warm up the tires, see, we have like road race compound tires. So at a given pro, like our first run and a half, we're still not there all the way with our tires warmed up. It's the second 2 runs where we really start going fast. And we always set our times on our second runs. And, for cars, some cars, it's the opposite. The tires get hot. They, whatever the Toyos or whatever, I don't know, like stories, with the Bridgestones, they get too hot and they don't work well and stuff. Complete opposite for the car. The more heat, the better. And of course, we set our class winning times on hot tires. Then we go to the challenge and we're making our first run on stone cold tires. It's not good. But there, it does work because it's so hot out and it's so rubbered up, it doesn't matter. The car just loves it it's just very consistent. So
you love the hot. The time of the year is great for you.
Yeah,
Adventures get more rubbered up.
Yep. And the more rubbered up, the better. The hotter, the better. So it works well. And then 14, we got it. We got the victory. I think it passed Eric Strelnick. We got him past him on the 3rd round. And because it was between me, him, and another guy from, I forgot his name. He's right here in Ramona as the white WRX. But he didn't make the challenge or lost in the first round. And then 2 rounds before the finish, I met up with Strelnick, and then I got past him, and then made it all the way and actually won the whole challenge too.
Yeah.
And then
were you relaxed, probably? Because once you beat Eric, did you know that at that point you had
kind of. I knew I had the points victory, but I was still going for the overall thing. But I had there was another side story that year. And it was in the middle of, it was really fun and everything. I didn't get to enjoy it though. Because it was in the middle of a very serious family emergency. And I had a brother who was terminally ill with cancer at the time. And, it was questionable whether I was going to make it to nationals. And he's like, you need to go. And I did. He passed away a month after nationals. And that was on my mind. He was texting me in the middle between rounds. And so it was very, very emotional. So, and I held it together through the whole challenge. Only the very last round, I made the first run. I knew it was good. I had like a 10th lead, which was good. And right as I pulled up the line to stage, like the tears started pouring down my eyes. I'm like, I got to stage. Not now. So and then I remember my rule, which is just concentrate on the first thing. So I staged and just concentrated on cutting a light, and I did it. And I just ran the course, and it was done. And it was like a big emotional release after that. So it was good.
So your brother was checking in and seeing what's going on, like engaged in your racing. Yeah,
he was, and he was watching live, streaming and stuff like that. So.
It's so great that he wanted you to come and he got to share that with you. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. So it was an interesting year. We'll just say that. So not something I wouldn't wish on anybody, his family. So, then 2015, I wasn't in the points, but I made it to the final round and I lost in the final round. I made a mistake. I forget what it was, but I goofed. And, 2016, I won it again. And this was totally different. What happened in that season is, I won the first event. I won the challenge in the first event. I went all the way to the final round, beat Paul Brown, got a first place at El Toro. All right, cool. went to Crow's Landing. Was stuck in bump class, but I made the challenge. First round, red lit. I mean, and it was the bug of not having a cardboard, because I reviewed the video. I'm like, I did not red light this thing. And I reviewed the video and I didn't. And I realized the stage light reconnected between my legs underneath the Nassau panel of the cart. And I'm like, and I remember Howard telling me, if it does that, it's going to DQ you. And I was like, oh boy. So I had to that's what I put in the piece of cardboard after that. And it was fine. So, I only got like 5 points. So I had like 50 points. Okay. Which is not enough to win the whole thing. In fact, I was in 12th place. And all I was in 12th place, the top 3 guys were way ahead of everybody, the whole pack. So we get to the finale. I win the class, get to the challenge. And, those top 3 guys either, I don't know what happened to them, but they either didn't make the challenge or they got knocked out in the first round. So now it's like the top 8. And of that top 8, like almost all of them got knocked out in the first round. It was just like me and Paul Brown and one other person left. And I didn't know this actually. So I'm sitting around waiting for like round 3 and Paul Brown comes up. He goes, hey, you know what's going on here? I'm like, what? I'm like, it's really between you and me and one other person. I'm like, what? And he started telling me this and I'm like, you're kidding. I had no idea. So I'm like, all right. So I just, and then I like went back to my number 1 rule. Just concentrate on what you have to do first and ignore everything else. So I just forgot about it. And I made it round after round after round. I think I went against Sam Strano in the last round and got him and, got the victory. And then and I wasn't, in fact, we're lining for the very last round, right? And there's all these people circled around my cart, people talking, and Andy Hollis comes up and he's like, and he's Mr. Like, statistician, right? He's like, dude, I did the math. I told him, I said, don't tell me. Don't say a word. I don't want to hear it. I got to concentrate on running. Just don't. He's like, okay. He understood my message. So he backed off. And I'm glad because I just had to concentrate on cutting a good light and making a run. So, and it all worked out. So,
Did you have to win that last round?
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, it was between me and Sam, actually.
And
the winner was going to take all. It was winner take all in that last round, is what Andy told me later.
Okay.
Don't know if that was true, but I believe it was. And they called my name at the thing, and they handed me a guitar. So I won a guitar.
Oh, that's
Kiesel.
right. Yep.
Yeah, I got the guitar, and it's on my wall in my living room. I got a really cool mount I put up on the wall. So got a few F-18s flying over my head, but I think they're gone here.
Oh, I almost heard the background. Not really. They were good. They were okay.
That's good. Yeah, I'm by Miramar here in San Diego, so I got some Top Gun action here. So, yeah, it was really fun. That was a fun year. That's why I really enjoyed that one. I didn't have the emotional distress of family issues, and it was just such a surprise. It really was, but it was really cool.
Surprise, and you had to drive and win the challenge to get it. That's even like the cherry on top. You didn't just get given it by, oh, look, everybody went out and I made it to the third round.
Strelnick in the third round. I had to plow through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But what happened is all the fast guys in front of me fell on the sword somehow. It was pure luck. That one was lucky.
That's why I tell people, it seems like in challenges decently often, it's so funny when I look back at those. It's like, what happened? Oh, that person red light against me, or this happened, or they hit a cone when I hit a cone, or
exactly. You need some luck. You need some luck in at least one round. The other thing that happens is if you run across a card or me or something, and you're in a car, you're going to have a 1 second lead after the first run. Okay, don't take that in the bank because the tires are cold. I don't know how many times I come whipping around and they go, such has an 8/10 lead. I'm like, to me, it's like, oh, I got it won because I can make that up on the next run.
Yeah, so you should expect to be down, and I should expect to be up, but not really be up.
Yes, you need to be up by over a second.
And no matter what,
weird way. If all things being equal, sort of. You know what I mean? Not everything's equal. Not about left, right courses are the same. But if you listen to Howard announce, anytime a cart's up there, he'll say things like that too, and he's right. Because we're so slow, like the first half of the first run. It's just stone cold tires, with the exception of the pro finale.
Yeah, because it's so hot ambient temperature anyway.
And the rubber. The rubber makes a big difference. And hot rubber, too. Rubber that's been baking out there in the sun all afternoon. Oh, that's just the best.
Be like, I just want to smell it.
It just works.
So, were those your favorite memories already? I like to ask.
One of my favorite memories I have a lot of them. Yes, those 2 victories, winning my first national championship, that was really cool. I got to run against Bob Bondurant one time. He came out and ran kart mod in like 1999 or something like that. He came out of nowhere, and I beat him. He shook my hand. I was like, oh, I'm never going to wash his hand again, kind of thing. I was like, oh, that was so cool. And he's an old guy at the time, so I don't even know if he's still alive. It's just, I'm sure he is, but I wish him the best, but it was really cool to have him out there.
Like, I got him. Yes, this is my domain. See?
Well, he was out there. He was adding karts to his school, and he just wanted to run out and try it out. So he had him and some of his buddies, whatever, ran the class. And so I got the win that day, and he shook my hand. It was really cool. So
very cool. So will you ever get back to cars? Do you ever co-drive cars during the year?
I don't co-drive. I don't run many solo events during the year. I do various karting things. I run endurance races and some occasional road race. I don't do as much sprint racing as I used to. The answer is I'd like to. I'd always wanted to win F-Stock. Now they call it F-Street. And the problem is what car is it? It used to be just go get a Camaro. Okay. Then it was get a Mustang. Now it's get a BMW M3. And now it's the new Camaro based off the ATS chassis. And so I don't even know what the car is. And it's an expensive proposition too.
I bet somebody might let you co-drive. Just go pitch that out there in case anybody would like to see if they can handle it.
Well, possibly, but it'd have to sort of I wouldn't just do it for the fun of it. I'd do a nationals effort. So if I actually did it, I'd get the car like a month after running nationals in the cart, put the cart in the back of the garage, and then start sorting out the car. Get the right shocks, get it all sorted out. Like I said, get it sorted out completely by the spring, and then learn how to drive it all summer. So I need to like co-drive with somebody in Southern California that had the car, and I'd have complete access to it. I'd have to drive it to work. I'd have to, do a lot of that. I have to become complete one with that vehicle. I am not the type of person who can just hop in a car and go fast. I can't do it. Other people can do it. I just don't. It takes me a while to really learn a car. When I learn it, I get it. But I'm just not quick to switch.
I hope I move out there just so I can get an F-Stock car. I'd be laughing.
Come on, bring it on.
There you go. Figure this out.
I heard it's the new Camaro, so who knows?
New Camaro. I just want to show up and drive. That's what I can handle.
Yeah. So,
if you could drive anybody's vehicle out there, what would it be?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Man, that's a good question. I never thought about that. I'd like to drive KJ's A-Mod car just once. Never driven it. Just see how wild that ride is. What class it ought to be fun, or just like to see like how good you really are. The Miatas and was it C-Stock or C Street Prepare or C Street? The class that had 60 people in it or something like that. Where the first 3 trophies were 1,000th apart or something. That's like the ultimate class too, right now, in terms of who can drive well. It'd be fun to have a properly prepped Miata and do that. Man, whose car would I really want to drive? You know what the problem is? The cart has ruined it for me. It seriously has. It's so bloody fast, it just makes everything else slow. Like I bought an 89 Corvette like 15 years ago. And it was a Z51. Like, it was a cool Corvette. Like, it was the Corvette at the time. Okay. And to me, it was slow and cumbersome and heavy and stupid. It was just like nothing competes with a cart. Everything's slower and just whatever. It's weird. It's kind of ruined. Like, I don't even care about owning a sports car or driving around the street. They're just not that fast, and they're heavy and they don't handle well. And seriously, I took Eric, my cohort. He bought a couple Formula Renaults, which are like they're kind of like Formula 4s with wings. They get these little Renault engines in them, and we took them on a big track at California Speedway. And oh my God, that was a lot of fun. Real downforce, that's a vehicle that transitioned faster than a kart, and in tight sections with the downforce and stuff. That was a thrill. So I just want to go up and I want to go faster vehicles from this point on. in a weird way, you just get spoiled.
Yeah, exactly. So for some people listening that buy lots of sports cars, maybe if they just got into karting, they won't be buying all these cars from what you're saying. But what's the abuse on the body?
It's not abuse. It'll make you get in shape. I'll tell you that. You have to get in shape for it. It'll make you, if you need to lose some weight, you'll lose some weight. It'll get your shoulders and your back in shape because you got to pick the thing up, and just driving it and the G-forces and such will get your shoulders in shape. So what it will teach you, though, is really fast reflexes. You'll be like Spider-Man. You'll be able to, like, snatch a fly out of the air
with one chopstick.
Oh, yeah, because the shifting is so quick. It does speed you up. It speeds up your mind. And then when you go to a slower car, yeah, it's slower, whatever, but you can handle it.
So I could get a cart for cross training in the cart.
In a way. And it's not impossible. Anybody can do this. Anybody can drive a cart. Anybody can be good at it, actually. I'm not superhuman. No one in a cart is. But it does take some training, and it'll take you to a higher level of speed and mental awareness. That it will do. And it will take you to another level of fitness, physical fitness, if you do a lot of laps.
I love it.
Yeah, so it's exhilarating. It really is.
I'm going to try to stay out of them, but you're everybody I talk to interview. I'm like, oh, I want one of those too. I should try that.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, we were like a welcome party at a pro, and Barbara Leroy Amy, she asked me, like, she goes, I drive a car like for 2 seasons, and then I get bored with it. Why are you still in the cart? And the answer was, I never get bored of the cart. It's such an e-ticket ride that nothing compares.
Yeah. If it's so fast and can do so many things.
And it's so cheap to run too.
Yeah, okay.
A whole season on one set of tires that costs $200.
So what's it cost if I have the cart and everything, or how much would I spend to get a cart?
Okay, a competitive. Are you talking kid cart or adult?
No, I want to be able to beat you. What's up? What do I need besides my skills, my super skills?
You're gonna need a modern chassis, no older than I'd say 3 years old, maybe 4, depending on the chassis. You're gonna be a competitive motor, so you can get a package used. 3,000 to 4,000. Add another 1,000 for ancillary stuff that we talk about, safety gear and stands and things like that. That's your entry price here, your fixed cost. To run the thing, really all you need is the tires are about $240. You only need about 2 sets realistically. One set to run if the only thing you do is autocross, one set to run all the spring and summer events, and a fresh set for nationals, and you're good to go, believe it or not. And but if you want another set for running on the track, because you take the tires and run them on a track all day long, you'll burn them up. You never cord a tire in a cart. They just get cooked to the point where the rubber, just doesn't work anymore.
You practicing on the track with the same type of tires?
No, because they're too sticky.
Oh, okay.
They really are. Well, you run the stickiest road race tire, but you could, but I don't want to burn them up there. I run one compound higher, and once they heat up, it's the equivalent of an autocross level grip, if that makes sense. So that's what I do for practice. And a lot of the wheel-to-wheel kind of organizations run with that kind of compound tire. They don't run with an autocross compound. Only the guys in Europe do that.
So am I in for $8,000 or $10,000? I don't know what it cost me for a cart chassis.
You can get a used setup, probably about $4,000. Good one, okay? And another $1,000 for other stuff. So 5 to 6, you're in. And if you already have a pickup truck you can haul it with, or you need a little trailer or something like that. So not bad. And then just operating expenses. I mean, it's just way less than a car. It just is. So, and you can spend as much money as you want. You go to the track every weekend. It's going to be $40 for a little track fee, and whatever tires you want to burn up. Getting used to the thing.
Very cool. I like it. Everybody's going to come out there and join in.
Yeah, it's you can do it anytime you like. So it's not like let's say you have an A-mod car. What are you going to do? Take it to the A-mod track and sort it out? No, you have to do that at practice events that only happen so often. So we have the advantage of going to a kart track and getting it sorted out and learning stuff like that.
Oh, believe me, that's the biggest thing. Everyone wants seat time, and I know that I can drive like 25 minutes from here in Centennial.
Uh-huh.
And when I say nobody's there, a lot of times I think nobody's there.
Yeah, so one of the advantages. And if you want to do some wheel-to-wheel, you can do that too. So
I like it. I appreciate all the information. You packed a lot of interesting concepts and tips and things you are doing that help you succeed and be fast and win.
Oh, well, it was my pleasure. Anybody listening, please don't use it against me. So, in my class,
challenge,
other classes, good luck to you.
And the challenge will be like, think about the second thing you're going to do.
If you do that, then you'll blow the first thing you're going to do and not cut a good
No,
leg.
that's how I'm going to ask you. What's the second thing you're going to do? And
there isn't the second thing, because the philosophy is the second thing will come to you naturally. Once you get going, your brain will kick in and figure it all out.
That's where I got to hit at Tom Berry again, who was recorded long ago on this podcast. At one pro in the challenge is like, so how many cones? Or you hit a lot of cones this weekend, huh? I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, I see what you're trying to get me to think about something else. Oh, in pros, that's one thing I found in the past. I was super aggressive on Saturday. Do you have a different mindset, pro versus nationals? Are you super aggressive on Saturday, trying all kinds of things, or are you just doing what you do?
No, I do what I do.
Okay.
The reason is it could rain Sunday.
Yep.
You definitely want the lead Saturday night because you want to apply mental pressure to your opponents, and it could rain. Anything could happen. You could break down. You could red light your best run. Okay, like for us, remember I said, on cold tires, so the first 2 runs really don't count on left and right. It's the last 2 runs on left and right that matter. And if you red light one of them, you're done. So always get a time. Always. That brings up another point slightly, and that is the philosophy at an autocross. You get 3 runs. Do you go all out on the first run and then clean it up? Is it better to just go slower, or do you just kind of get to know the course and go faster as you go? And I'm definitely in the school of thought of get a time. Especially at nationals, get a time. Go a little conservative. It's easier to fix a few problems than it is to then have a disqualified time with a cone or something like that. Because how many times have you heard the story? Someone went balls to the wall, on the first run. Okay, and then they went out for their second run and they accidentally hit another cone. Now they're totally screwed. And and with a gun to your head, you're not going to get a good time in your third run. You never want to put yourself in that position at nationals. So I always make sure I get a time, get in the game, and then in the second and third runs, I just clean up mistakes and go.
And that hit me this time differently in thinking, not only the gun's not to my head, but you've got a time in there. And if you didn't do overdrive, you probably don't have quite as many mistakes. I could almost see that happening where if I'm trying to take off 1% or 2%, if I say 5 or 10, I'm slow. But if I just go out there,
I don't think of it as in time. Well, sorry to interrupt, but I don't think of it as you got to fix a few. I don't think of it as I needed some more time. I think of it as just strictly. Remember, my opponent is the course.
Yep.
It's always the course. So I always think about what I have to fix in each section of the course, and let the time will take care of itself.
I just think about the not overly aggressive on the first run. Let's say you said conservative. So just a little bit back may be so beneficial. Only once at nationals have I had cones my first 2 runs. And that's not fun at all. You're thinking, hey, am I throwing away, especially day one, am I throwing away the whole nationals if I hit a cone? So then being conservative on the third run really sucks. Whereas if you have the approach of the first run, I think that could open up things for people, myself included, of thinking that, hey, can I just take it back, let the nerves settle a little?
Yeah, it works for me because I've been in the opposite situation with my gun to my head in the third run, and it's just not fun. And for me, it's easier to go faster and clean up. Fix mistakes, and always get a time, and never DNF. That's the other thing. Never, ever, ever DNF. So even if you blow through a gate the wrong way, stop, turn around, come back, and go back on course where you are, and then go all out.
Yep.
And get a time. Because I don't know how many times I've worked the trailer where somebody DNF'd, and the timing went bad, and they would have got a rerun. It happens. It's like the karma just lines up on those things. It's amazing.
Yep, the people did that at nationals. It was drying during our super street runs. I came down toward the timing trailer, spun out, drove a big circle. They're all pointing me like I didn't know where the course was at. I'm like, oh no, I got to re-enter the slalom where I exited wrongly.
Yep.
I knew they're pointing like, no, I get it. I'm just trying to explore in those drying conditions what the heck to do. So I agree, and there might be a cone missing, or timing or something else.
Yeah, you never know. And you get red flag, who knows. So I never DNF, technically DNF. But the funny thing is, the past 2 nationals, my first run, I just blew off course badly. I totally didn't do what I meant to do, but lately I've been thinking I can take things flat out. Nope, I can't. So,
I am Superman. I can do this. I can turn on a dime.
No, I'm not.
It's the cover. It's the cover. It got to you finally.
There's kryptonite out there. There's real kryptonite out there.
Use the brake. One must slow down every once in a while.
Yeah, the brake pedal is your friend. It really is, especially in a high-powered vehicle.
Paul, I appreciate it, man. This has been great. Any other
cool.
great tips? Any other parting words, or I'll cut it?
No, that's it. That's everything I can think of. So keep experimenting out there. If you're in any kind of cart with the kids or the adults, there's more there to learn than you can think. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm still learning things. So
I love it. Experimenting has been a theme since I was out in California a lot last year with the Ty Lopez Mastermind Group. Sam Walton's book, Experiment, Experiment, Experiment. Those who experiment the most and know what they're doing will find the most opportunities in business and racing and everything.
Yeah, it's true.
To experiment. I appreciate it once again. Thank you much.
Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for having me. Thanks for hosting.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for listening. For the show notes and contact information, please visit autocrosstalk.com. There you can also subscribe so that we can keep you up to date on new shows as they come out. Also, please leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on iTunes for the upcoming shows. You can connect to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autocrosstalk. You can share your thoughts, your insights, your questions, your suggestions there. Also, share with your friends. Hopefully you found it entertaining and motivating, and hopefully other people will as well. It's been fun, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, and check back next week for the next show.